TitleMatchNetwork.com.
That's one of my questions to defend you personally when you see like put other horseman groups together, like
they're not the Horsemen.
Right, exactly.
I mean, when they wanted to put the original Four Horsemen back together for the pay-per-view in some time,
right,
in A Flair for the Gold or something, I don't know, 92.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
I flew to Atlanta, talked to Ole, talked to Dusty, and they offered me a job for $500 a day. I left. I didn't say anything about them. They wanted me to make my appearance starting at the pay-per-view, which was 2 months away. I wrote them a letter. I said, we don't have a deal. I said, change your storyline. Don't advertise me. Probably should have sued them for advertising me.
Right.
And they knew I wasn't coming. I talked to Ole last year, and he said, why didn't you come? They knew I wasn't coming. My gosh, nobody sent me a plane ticket. If they didn't know I wasn't coming, somebody had mailed me a plane ticket and how to get there.
Right.
So, I mean, that's all hogwash. But, I mean, from what I understand, in fact, I even bought the pay-per-view that night to see how they were going to get out of it.
Right.
You could almost hear on television that when they announced the first three and they were waiting for me to come out,
Right.
that it went
down. Yep. Who was it? I forgot.
Paul Roma.
Oh,
that's
right.
when
Yeah.
they bought Roma in.
Yeah.
And I mean, Paul Roma is an awesome specimen in the gym. And actually, Arn and I at the WWF had some good matches with him and Jimmy Powers.
Right.
But he's not Tully Blanchard. And he was physically bigger than me. A lot of people physically bigger than me. But when I had something about me that when I walked to the ring, I was bigger than I was.
Right.
And you couldn't replace me with him or anybody else. I mean, they've tried, and the closest thing they've had to it, and really the closest thing they've had to it is here last year or so, is because Flair really put some energy into it. And Arn stepped up, but they. McMichael's a great football player. You know, there's not, well, the chemistry's not there. I mean,
right.
Benoit's a wrestler, and Malenko's a wrestler, and you know, it just wasn't there.
Right.
And as I told jillions of people all across this country, as I travel and speak and go to the prisons, I said, how can you have the Horsemen without me? You can't.
What led to the Four Horsemen concept? How did that all come about?
By accident. Because they booked a 6-man tag.
Who was it?
Arn and I and Rick. This was probably the end of 85, I guess. I still had my thing with Dusty. We'd already done the baby doll deal, and no, we hadn't done the baby doll deal with Dusty yet, I don't think. I don't remember, but I wrestled Magnum in there.
Right.
Yes, I did. That's exactly what it was. I'd already done the thing for the Great American Bash, and Dusty had won baby doll for 30 days.
Right.
And then her appearance back was when she handed me the quarters, dressed up like a
cop. And knocked out Magnum.
And I knocked out Magnum for the United States heavyweight title, which set up Starrcade I Quit match. So Flair had already switched. Arn had come in, being an Anderson and Flair being a cousin and all that kind of stuff. and Dusty was with somebody, Magnum, something, 6-man, and so it was us. And Arn said that, and I forget, I really forget the interview, but Arn was the first one that said Four Horsemen, or said Horsemen. And the old Notre Dame backfield from the 50s was called the Four Horsemen. They were pestilence, famine, death, and destruction. And they named their 4 backs that way. And so we were called, they were called the Four Horsemen, and so that was where it all came from. And how it caught was a group of college kids from Greensboro started dressing like us because our gimmick was dress up, sunglasses, coats, gold, ties, whatever it might be, and they haven't paid for a deal, so we'll cover up the label.
Actually, I remember seeing those kids on TV all the time.
In the Greensboro Coliseum, there's a whole row of them. They sit on the second row ringside with flashcards and sunglasses. I said, "My God, flashcards at a wrestling match!" I was blown away by that. And so I was in the hallway back outside our dressing room with Crockett, and he looked at me and said, "This thing's really getting over, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah, matter of fact." And that's when they started putting the promotional machine to it. And that's why it got as big as it did, because it didn't come out of some smoky idea room.
Right.
It happened. And the fans grabbed a hold of it. And it exploded. I never knew why it exploded. But until about 2 years ago. 3 years ago, maybe. Why? Because it was really a phenomenon.
It was awesome.
I mean, it was unbelievable. When I walked in, when I did the pay-per-view in Philadelphia in '94, maybe.
Slamboree with Funk?
Yes. God, they were mad at me that day. That's a whole other story. But anyway. But when I walked out and I watched the crowd the rest of the night and I held up 4 fingers, it was as big as anything that night. And that blew me away because it had been 94 to 88 the last time I was in Philadelphia with as a Horseman.
That was the night you lost the belt with Midnight.
Yeah, in September of '88. And then we've been back to the Spectrum, but not in that building.
Right.
Whose decision was it to have Luger as always replacement?
The Bookers, eventually. I mean...
Did anybody object to it? Or
Well, nobody knew him. He just started.
right.
I mean, we brought him in from Florida. I mean, you look at him, he looks like $1 million.
Right.
He didn't stay real long.
Yeah, you did that thing in the bunkhouse, right?
About 10 months. A year almost.
Was it a whole year?
Almost. I think like January to December.
And then really the strongest group that we had that were all performers, because when Barry came on. And which wasn't too long after we wrestled Barry and Luger on the first Clash. And Barry switched not too long after that.
Right.
And became one of us. There's really, I'll tell you the truth, there's really no telling how big the Horsemen could have gotten if the promotion would have pushed it. I can remember for almost 3 years, every now and then you hear a conversation, well, we need to split you guys up. We need to split you guys up. And I remember in the Boston Garden, Flair and I and Arn talking. I said, what in the world is their problem? My God, they're always trying to kill us. And we'd wrestle 6-man, 8-man, 6-man, cage, barbed wire. We got beat every stinking night, everywhere, and they never ever put any money back in the bank. We could perform and perform and perform and perform and get beat and get beat and get beat and get beat, and people would still pay to see us. If they would have took care of us a little bit, my gosh.
All right. We're just talking about the success of the Horsemen.
Okay,
And how
the
it
Horseman
started.
thing, and it was just wild, and the reason that it worked, and it worked to the level that it worked, is this. If you remember what we talked about, we very seldom talked about our opponents. We didn't sit here and say, oh, we're going to beat somebody up and we're going to rip your eyeballs out and all that garbage. I mean, how many times and how many different ways can you make it entertaining that I'm going to beat you up and I'm going to annihilate you, and there's not enough words in the English language to articulate it. But what we talked about was being a horseman, being a world champion, being the best, and what, if you think about it, what that actually is a doctrine on life, how to live your life. And that's what people bought into. They bought into us telling them to be the best. I mean, I can remember being on TV. I said, hey, the important thing, this is the symbol of excellence. It is be the best.
Right.
Whether it is a student, a football player, a screw up, a whatever, be the best. Make somebody talk about you.
Right.
And people grabbed onto that. And that's what we continually talked about. And so we actually had a cult following to whatever minute degree. And man, it was wild. And they keep trying to put it back together, but they can't put it back together because they don't have the blueprint.
Right.
They don't understand why it got big the first time. And see, I mean, I didn't understand it until I really have thought about it over the last number of years. If you don't know how something works, you can't ever redo it.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.